Cutchogue and New Suffolk are in the heart of the North Fork, and some of the features that make these towns unique are the beautiful, pristine coastline of the Long Island Sound and Peconic Bay, as well as their estuaries, tributaries, and creeks. We are also fortunate to have acres of undeveloped farmland and many nationally significant historic houses and sites. In response to the increasing loss of the community's historical resources due to real estate development, the Cutchogue-New Suffolk Historical Council was formed in 1960 as a 501c3 nonprofit educational organization dedicated to preserving and interpreting the history of Cutchogue and New Suffolk, Long Island. Their mission was to collect, preserve, and interpret the history of Cutchogue and New Suffolk and the surrounding North Fork, Long Island region. As a part of this mission, they acquired Cutchogue's downtown Village Green and relocated endangered historic structures to the site. These landmark buildings soon became showcases for artifacts of local and regional significance. To further its mission, the Historical Council acquired the old Cutchogue burying ground on the main road east of town, where over 550 of Cutchogue's early settlers are buried. We achieve our mission through education, historic preservation, community involvement, and enrichment, and preserving and interpreting the history of Cutchogue and New Suffolk. Education is at the core of our mission. One of the most important ways we connect with the community is through our website, blogs, and social media presence. We have created a 6-point youth initiative, which includes community service credits through volunteerism, teaching buried history, a day on the Village Green education program, Family History Day, paid internship and scholarships, and we inform and enlighten through our guided tours, lecture series, and exhibits. In 2022, we updated our website, giving it a new, more accessible look. We added a point on the timeline to include the first European contact with the indigenous people of the area. And to update the information on the old house, we added the 1698 story, so we are now telling both stories. In the 1649 story that has been attached to the house for over 100 years, and the newly discovered scientific data which dates the house to 1698. We've also included a curated blog which helps us to connect the community and update them on local historical stories and findings. We also maintain an active social media presence. In early spring, we send out our calendar of events for the year. In 2023, we formalized our youth initiative and organized it into 6 points. Community service credits through volunteerism. Local students are given training by professionals to clean and right stones at the old burying ground on community service days.
So right now we're volunteering for Madison High School, cleaning the graves in Cutchogue. So we had someone teach us how to do it, and hopefully we get a lot done and get the graves all nice and cleaned.
Teaching buried history. This is an off-the-shelf program that helps teachers use local burying grounds as research sites to teach students about their history. We work with local teachers and give them access to the program and burial grounds. Using our education committee, which consists of volunteer teachers, educators, and grant writers, we work with local educators to customize a curriculum where a group of students or a class spends the day on the Village Green, being taught as if they were attending school 150 years ago. The immersive experience includes tours of the historic buildings, a class taught in the 1850 schoolhouse, and recess and lunch with colonial games and food. 2024 will be our 3rd annual Family History Day, open to the public. This event, which we resurrected from the past, is a fun family day designed to teach children and adults in a hands-on way about our local history. The event centers around the program of the 3rd New York Regiment, 1775 reenactors of the Revolutionary War, and includes roaming ballad singers. Talks about the indigenous peoples at Cutchogue and their everyday life. Colonial games, cooking and spinning demonstrations. Through the Gardner Foundation, we also offer paid internships and scholarships. From June to October, we offer guided tours of our site, where we discuss the permanent and temporary exhibits in our museum houses. During the winter months, we seek out interesting historical topics on local history and hold a lecture series. Much of the reason for the founding of the council was historic preservation. Most of the buildings on the village green are still part of our community and help to physically tell the story of the history of our town because of the efforts of members of the council. But some of the stories of local historic preservation aren't memorialized with a building on the green. For one such story, you have to travel west for about a mile on the main road to the site of the Downs Preserve. The preservation of this site tells the story of many local people who worked hard over 30 years to preserve the land that the important Fort Cutchogue sits on. 20th century archaeologist Ralph Salicki, a local who grew up near the site, became a world-renowned archaeologist and used this site as a source for his thesis, bringing national attention to it as one of the most significant sites of the first colonial contact in the United States. Many of the local people and council members fought long and hard for preservation of this site. Myra Case, a past council president, was one of the people who started the movement in 1973 by lobbying that led to the land's listing on the National Register for Historic Places. There were many unnamed others, and it was thanks to institutions like the Peconic Land Trust, South Old Town, the State Office of Parks and Recreation, and the Cutchogue-New Suffolk Historical Council who put up $100,000. And donations from private individuals like Russell McCall that ultimately preserved the land in 1997. Our board members and staff continue to keep the topic of historic preservation alive in the media as part of our blog and through social media. Many of our members have served on the South Old Town Historic Preservation Commission. The council, which owns and maintains the Village Green, recognizes the history of the village greens as gathering places for the community. They provided an open-air meeting place for the people of the village, typically at times of celebration or for public ceremonies. We see a large part of our role as facilitating that in small ways by encouraging picnicking, by providing public picnic tables and benches, but also through events and collaborative efforts. We create historical and cultural events such as concerts, car shows, plein-air painting instruction, and the Village Green Christmas tree lighting. We recently had a gala celebration commemorating 50 years of vineyards on the North Fork, and we participate in local parades and other holiday celebrations. We offer the library easy access to the green to put on their outside events as we do other community organizations such as the Cutchogue Old Town Arts and Crafts Guild. We also offer financial support to the New Suffolk Waterfront Fund, preserving and interpreting the history of Cutchogue and New Suffolk. Through maintaining our collections and buildings, as well as considering new acquisitions, we preserve and interpret the history of Cutchogue and New Suffolk. Recently, with significant funding from the Jerry Charitable Trust, Century Arts Foundation, and the Robert David Lyon Gardner Foundation, we have done another restoration of the exterior and reinterpreted the interior of the old house. It received a new interpretive plan in conjunction with the acquisition of appropriate objects and fabrication of high-quality furnishings, typical of 17th century period life. The reinterpretive project was directed by noted Pilgrim Century scholar and guest curator Robert F. Trent. As we mentioned, there are many historic properties preserved on the Village Green. These are the Old House, the Wickham House, the Schoolhouse, the Red Barn, the Village Garage, the Carriage House, the Cutchogue Burying Ground. The Old House is the Historical Council's most noteworthy historic building and one of New York State's most significant first-period houses. It gained National Historic Landmark status in 1961 and was constructed in the late 17th century. The house now serves as the architectural centerpiece of the Village Green. The house was restored and furnished for public tours in 1939-1940 to serve as a focal point of South Old Town's tricentenary celebration. It recently received a new interpretive plan, and visitors are now able to experience how the house would have been set up and lived in from when it was first built in colonial times. The Wickham Farmhouse is a pre-Revolutionary period house, originally constructed on Route 25 Main Road, then known as Kings Highway. It was donated to the Historical Council in 1965 and moved to the Village Green for preservation. Now restored, the Wickham Farmhouse is an excellent example of a Cape Cod-style dwelling of the mid-18th century, and it's furnished with many 19th century artifacts that portray everyday life in early Cutchogue. The old schoolhouse, built circa 1840, was Cutchogue's first district school building and continued to serve local students until 1903. It was moved to a nearby farm where it served for many years as a tenant's dwelling and later donated to the Historical Council. It was moved to the village green in 1964 and restored to its original condition. Today, the old schoolhouse displays numerous authentic artifacts such as maps, toys, books, and objects related to the native Cutchogue Indians, for which the hamlet was named. The schoolhouse is typical of a mid-19th century construction period, only 1 story high with a bank of 4 oversized windows on each side wall. The Red Barn, built in 1865 behind the Presbyterian manse next door to the village green. The Red Barn was used to house the minister's horse and buggy. It was acquired for preservation, relocated, and restored on the present site in 1964 and enlarged in 2002. Today, it houses the council's collections of farming implements, fishing equipment, woodworking tools, and Native American artifacts. The Village Garage is a contemporary timber frame building constructed on the village green in 2010 to house a 1927 Ford Model T truck, once used on the nearby Fleet Farm. The garage is currently set up to tell a brief history of transportation and includes a surrey and other historic objects that create a narrative for how people got around on the North Fork, as well as other early 20th century local histories, such as the first successful submarine commissioned by the U.S. Navy. The late 19th century period former farm accessory building, the Carriage House, has served many purposes: storage, garage, chicken coop, and peacock house. The structure was moved to the village green in 1990 and served as a hub for the historic buildings on the village green. Having been idle for almost 4 years due to the pandemic, in 2023 the Carriage House was cleaned out and refurbished with a fresh coat of interior paint and is now used as an information center with space for rotating exhibits. There are brochures, publications, and gift items for sale there. All proceeds benefit the preservation and maintenance of the village green. We even host a pop-up Christmas shop. The historic Old Cutchogue Burying Ground is amongst the most ancient found on the North Fork and is a sacred and historic site where the remains of Cutchogue's early settlers were laid to rest. The land was part of the property early settler William Wells had purchased from the Cutchogue Indians in 1661. The earliest marked gravestone bears the date 1717 and is one of over 550 monuments at the site. From the early part of the 20th century, community members would gather early to clean and care for the site. The Cutchogue Presbyterian Church sold the burying ground to the council in 1960 for the sum of $1. At this point, it became the council's responsibility to care and maintain the site. The council is conducting a multi-year burying ground conservation project that addresses the preservation challenges associated with the slate, sandstone, and marble headstones, which are vulnerable to deterioration and suffer from exposure to the elements and occasional vandalism. This preservation project has created a detailed conditions assessment with recommendations for conservation treatment. Transcribed inscriptions and entered genealogical data and photography are entered into a searchable online database called billiongraves.com and sponsor annual public workshops where participants observe and assist in restoration treatments led by materials conservator Joel Snodgrass of Steward Preservation Services, Inc. In addition to these workshops, we offer internships and team up with local scout troops to clean, repair, and restore the stones and the site. Collaborating with the North Fork Community Theater, we now offer a yearly tour of the site where we bring the stories of many of those buried there to life with costume actors recounting their histories. Our most productive, long-term, and ongoing collaboration is with the Cutchogue-New Suffolk Free Library. As a seasonal organization, the Village Green historic buildings are as yet unheated. The Historical Council utilizes library facilities for off-season lectures, programs, and meetings. The library's Long Island collection is enhanced by archival material on long-term loan from the Historical Council. By providing a climate-controlled environment and professional staff, the library manages the Historical Council's archive collections for public access. For its part, the Council funds improvements that benefits the library, such as a system of archival shelving installed in 2017. The library promotes council programs via its quarterly newsletters, reaching over 2,500 local households, and by distributing flyers that are prominently displayed at the circulation desk. Thank you for letting us show you who we are and what we do. We hope that you have learned a lot about us, and like so many others, you would be willing to consider donating your time and your money to our organization. We encourage you to become a member and volunteer. You can see what fun we have, and there's always a place for everyone.